At dawn, the woman who raised her threw her into the forest. No name, no goodbye. One whisper, run. She was a servant, a nobody. Until the Alpha King's wolf stopped breathing the moment he caught her scent. A forbidden mating ceremony. A bloodline they thought died 10 years ago. An ancient law that binds a king to Zind woman, even if 2 kingdoms burn. He was promised to another. She was promised to silence. Neither survived the night they met. A scar at her throat. A ring with a green stone. A queen kneeling in the courtyard, begging the niece she pretended to hate to forgive her. Castles burn. Wolves howl. A black blade rises over the king bleeding in the snow, and the quiet maid they all overlooked bares her teeth. You should have killed me when I was still a girl.
Have you ever felt invisible to the entire world until one pair of eyes finally saw you in the dark? She is running, branches whip her arms, wet leaves slap her shins. The moon hangs above the canopy like a coin hen somebody flipped and forgot to catch. Elowen does not know where she is going. She only knows what is behind her. Yellow eyes, burning, real. 24 hours earlier, she had no idea any of this was possible. The room she shared with the other maids was small enough that 3 cots and a single trunk filled it completely. The window faced north. The wall sweated in summer and froze in winter. Elowen had lived in that room for 10 years, since she was 8. Since the day a quiet rider in a black cloak set her down on the cobblestones of Lady Matilda's courtyard and rode away without saying a word. She remembered the cobblestones better than she remembered the rider. Greta was the one who started it. Greta was always the one who started it. Wine on her breath, mischief in her teeth. The kind of grin that meant somebody was about to do something stupid before sunrise. My grandmother told me the truth about the silver moon. Cosima rolled onto her side, smaller than the rest, eyes too big for her face. The kind of person who listened the way other people prayed. You don't know anything your grandmother told you. I know enough. Elowen kept scrubbing a smudge of dirt from under her thumbnail. She did not look up. She had learned a long time ago that pretending not to listen was the safest way to hear everything, once a year. The first full moon of spring. The whole pack gathers in a clearing nobody talks about. 4 fires, drums that don't stop, and the alpha walks among the women who put themselves forward. For what to choose? The room got quieter. The wolf chooses, not the man. That's the part everyone forgets. The wolf in him decides who he wants. The woman accepts or she doesn't, but either way her family gets blessed by the pack. Wheat that doesn't rot, cattle that don't sicken, husbands who come home in one piece. Cosima frowned. My grandmother says it's forbidden to watch. Of course it's forbidden. That's what makes it interesting. Elowen finally lifted her head. And what does anyone do with this knowledge? Greta's grin widened. Funny, you should ask. Elowen should have known. Because Greta never told a story without a trap inside it. Because a bored maid with a clever mouth was a dangerous animal in any castle. Because the well had been almost empty all afternoon, and Greta had spent half the morning whispering with Cosima in the corner of the kitchen. The bet was simple. Whoever filled the fewest buckets before the dinner bell had to sneak to the clearing and come back with details. The loser pays. The story pays. Everyone wins except the one who loses. Elowen lost. She did not lose by a little. She lost by half a bucket, which was nothing except in the language of 3 young women with too much pride and too little entertainment. Half a bucket was a continent. So she agreed. She told herself she would go to the tree line and turn around. Tell a believable lie. Describe the fires. Invent a song. Cosima would be satisfied. Greta would be furious. Life would continue. That was the plan. That was always the plan. The forest did not care what her plan was. She left the castle through the south postern an hour after the supper bell. Her shoes were soft. Her shawl was dark. She had memorized the way Cosima's grandmother had described the path, which was a vague kind of memorizing. Because Cosima's grandmother had described it in the careful half-whispers old women use when they are repeating something they should not be repeating at all. She climbed the low ridge behind the orchard. She crossed the cold stream where the watermill had been broken since spring. She picked up the deer path on the far bank and followed it for what felt like an hour, and was probably half that. The trees got older. The moss got thicker. The air changed. It was not just colder. It was watching her. She told herself the air was not watching her. The air kept watching her. By the time the drums started, she was already too close. The sound came up through the soles of her shoes before it reached her ears. Low. Steady. A heartbeat that was not hers. The trees thinned. The light changed, and then she was looking at a clearing she had no right to see. Her body knew before her mind did. The hair on the back of her neck rose. Her stomach pulled tight. Her hands found the trunk of a thick oak without asking her permission. She pressed her shoulder against the bark and made herself smaller, which was a thing she had practiced for a decade and was very good at by now. Go home, she thought. You have seen enough. You can describe the fires. You can invent a song. Greta will believe you, or she will pretend to, and either way you will be in your cot before the second watch. Her feet did not move. A part of her, the part she did not yet have a name for, wanted to see. A part of her, the part she would learn to name in the months ahead, had already known this clearing existed before she had ever heard Cosima's grandmother speak of it. A part of her had been waiting for tonight since she was 8 years old. She did not understand any of that yet. She only understood that she had stopped breathing properly, and that her hand on the bark was shaking, and that the drums had a shape, and the shape was a question, and the question was about to find her. She leaned forward, just an inch. She looked through the gap between two trunks. She saw the 4 fires. She saw the line of women. She saw the ring of pale stones. She saw at the very center of all of it a tall figure with hair the color of old wheat tied at the nape of his neck, walking very slowly past the line, the way a man walks past a row of books in a library he has not made up his mind to enter. He had not noticed her yet.
4 fires, each one the size of a small house. The light from them made the air look wet. Hundreds of people stood in a ring around an inner circle of pale stones, and the inner circle held a line of young women who had volunteered, and the inner circle held something else too. It held. She had never seen the Alpha King of Nightvale. She had heard about him the way she heard about weather in distant countries. Too tall, hair that color, eyes that changed depending on which animal was awake behind them. The maids in the laundry had a way of saying his name that involved sighing first. None of it had prepared her. Roderick walked the inner circle with the patience of a man who had never once needed to hurry. Bare chest. Skin shining with something that was not sweat and was not oil. The kind of body that did not seem to belong to a person so much as a category of weather. And every woman in the line waited for him. And he walked past each of them as if reading a book he already knew the ending of. Until he did not, he stopped. It was not a slow stop. It was not a polite one. His whole spine went rigid as if something invisible had grabbed him by the back of the skull. His head tilted. His shoulders rose. The drums kept going because the drums did not know yet. Elowen pressed her back into the trunk of the oak. She pressed so hard the bark bit her shoulder blades. Don't look at me. Please don't look at me. There is no way. There is no possible way. I am behind 200 yards of trees and there is no. He turned his head, slowly. The way a wolf turns its head before the rest of the body follows. His eyes found hers through the dark. They were not a metaphor. They were not a trick of firelight. They were yellow. Real, animal, lit from the inside yellow that cut the distance between them, like the distance was made of paper. She ran. She did not think. She did not choose. Her body simply rejected the moment and the trees and the impossibility of being seen, and her feet were moving before her mind caught up. Branches dragged at her sleeves. Roots grabbed at her ankles. Behind her, somewhere on the edge of the clearing, somebody was shouting, "Hold him, don't let him follow. Your Majesty, the ritual." She did not slow down enough to understand. Because understanding was a luxury, and she had a forest to disappear into, and she was already 3 breaths past her own panic. Inside the ring of stones, the world had gone wrong. Roderick was no longer in the line. Roderick was no longer in the circle. He was at the edge of the ring, and 4 of the ceremonial guards were in front of him, and none of them wanted to be there. The eldest guard raised a hand. His voice held, "Barely, Your Majesty. The ritual has not been completed. Move, Your Majesty, move." The guard did not move. The law was the law. The ritual was the ritual. Both had existed longer than any of them had been alive. Roderick tried to push past. The nearest guard caught his arm. What happened next was too fast for most to see. There was a sound that did not come from a throat, a low pressure that rolled through the pack and pushed them all back half a step. The 4 fires guttered for one instant as if a hand had closed over each of them. The pack watched. The pack had never watched an alpha lose this argument with himself before. The pack had never watched an alpha have this argument with himself at all. Roderick closed his eyes. He inhaled. Once, twice, 3 times. His shoulders shook. The skin along his forearms changed color and changed back. The guards holding him strained against a body that was not, strictly speaking, the same body it had been 4 breaths ago. A small voice in the back of the eldest guard's mind said, "He is going to lose this. He is going to lose it on purpose." He did. It was not graceful. It rarely is. There was a tearing of cloth. There was a sound a man cannot make. The guard's grip slipped because there was, suddenly, nothing to grip, and what landed where Roderick had been standing was not a man. Pale gold. Larger than any wolf the pack had a name for. Eyes still yellow, but now correctly placed in a skull that was correctly shaped to hold them. The wolf did not look at the line of women. The wolf did not look at the elders. The wolf looked at the tree line. The wolf vanished into the dark. The eldest guard sank slowly to one knee. Not in worship, in exhaustion. In the kind of exhaustion that comes after a man has watched his king choose a forest over a treaty and has not been able to stop him. Elowen was still running. She did not know any of this. She only knew her own breath escaping in white clouds and the dull thud of her shoes on damp earth and the conviction, deep in her ribs, that something behind her was much faster than she was and was choosing, for reasons she could not begin to understand, not to close the distance yet. The forest closed dark around her. The roots tripped her. Branches she could not see in the dark slapped her face. She raised her arms. She kept running. Her right foot struck something solid hidden beneath the leaves. The world spun. She had no time to react. Only the sensation that the ground had vanished beneath her feet. The slope began without warning. Wet leaves, slick moss. The descent was fast and chaotic. A branch tore her sleeve. Her shoulder slammed something hard. The blow flipped the world upside down. Then the trunk of a black oak found her ribs and stopped her. She lay on her side. Cold leaves under her cheek. No air in her lungs. The air came back in pieces, painful pieces. She did not move. She could not move. The forest above her had grown very, very quiet. A rib she could not name screamed in protest. Her left palm felt wet and was. Her right shoulder had a low ache that promised it would get worse before it got better. Her cheek was pressed to leaves that smelled like old rain and something darker underneath, the kind of smell forests keep close to the ground. She tried to sit up. She did not make it. The world tilted again, gentler this time, and she gave up and lay back down. She stared at the sky through the canopy. The moon had moved, not far, just enough to tell her that time was happening without her permission. She heard it then, not loudly, just enough. The kind of movement you only catch because every nerve in your body has decided to pay attention. Something at the top of the slope, heavy, patient. It paced once. It paced twice. Leaves shifted under a weight she did not want to think about. She held her breath. She held it for a long time. Whatever was up there did not come down. It stood at the edge of the slope as if it had been told, by some part of itself it did not understand, that the slope was a wall. It made a low sound she could not name. Not a growl. Something quieter. Something almost confused. Then it turned. Then it left. She did not understand how she knew it had left. She just knew. She let the breath out. She closed her eyes. She would later realize that she had been crying without knowing it. She lay there for a long time. Long enough for her hands to stop shaking. Long enough for the cold to settle into her shoulders. Long enough to understand that whatever had paced above her had been deciding something, and had chosen, for reasons she could not begin to imagine, to leave her alive. She did not have a word yet, for the thing she felt about that. She would, in time. She crawled. She got to her knees. She got to her feet. Her right ankle protested. She tested her weight. The ankle held barely. She took one step, two. She felt around in the dark for the bundle of her shawl which had come loose in the fall, and which she found 4 steps lower than she had landed. She wrapped it back around her shoulders. The cold cut her fingers. She kept moving. The walk back was its own kind of nightmare. She did not know the slope. She did not know the direction. She fixed her eyes on the moon when she could see it through the canopy and tried to remember which side of the castle it had been on when she left. She got it wrong twice. She backtracked. She fell once more, not hard, just enough to remind her that she had bruises she had not finished cataloging. By the time she made it back to the castle, the sky was the color of old milk. The watchman at the south postern was asleep against his pike. the way that Watchman was always asleep against his pike, and Elowen, who had spent 10 years learning the rhythm of his snoring, knew exactly how to slip past him. She climbed the servant's stair on bare feet so her shoes would not echo. The leather of her left shoe had split at the side anyway, and she had peeled it off 3/4 of the way home. She slipped through the door to the maid's room. Both candles were still burning. Both girls were sitting up. Greta opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "You're alive. Possibly. You look like you fought a tree. I lost." Cosima was already off her cot. She crossed the room with that careful weight she always had, the weight of a person who knew exactly how much space she was allowed to take up. Her hand reached for Elowen's elbow. "Gentle. The way you reach for something you are not sure is real. You're hurt." "I fell." "How?" "Down a slope." "How?" "In a hurry." Greta sat up straighter. Greta had a gift for smelling a story the way other people smelled rain. "What did you see?" Elowen sat on the edge of her cot. She unwound her shawl. She thought about the lie she had practiced on the walk back. She thought about the 4 fires. She thought about a pair of yellow eyes finding her across 200 yards of trees. "I left early. I got scared." "Liar, Greta. You don't fall down a slope in a hurry leaving early." "I don't know what I saw." That part was true. Cosima sat on the floor in front of her, knees up against her chest. The light from the candle picked out the small worry between her eyebrows. "Tell us anyway." So Elowen told them what she could. Fires, drums, a line of women, a king with hair the color of wheat at the end of summer. She left out the eyes. She left out the running. She left out the thing that had paced above her in the dark and had chosen, for whatever reason, not to come down. Greta was waiting for the climax. Greta was always waiting for the climax. And then I left." That's it! That's it!" Greta narrowed her eyes. Cosima did not say anything, which was somehow louder than what Greta said. Elowen unlaced her ruined shoe. The leather had split along the side. She would have to fix it before dawn, or she would be barefoot for the whole next day. And barefoot maids got noticed. And getting noticed was the one thing she had spent 10 years avoiding. "Cosima, your grandmother, did she ever say what happens if somebody who is not supposed to be there gets caught?" Cosima thought about it. She said, "The Alpha decides." "Decides what?" "Whatever the Alpha decides." That was not a comfort. Elowen blew out the candle. She lay down with mud still on her knees, and a bruise that ran the length of her ribs, and she stared at the ceiling she had stared at every night for 10 years. The ceiling looked exactly the same. She did not. But what Elowen could not have known, in that small hour before dawn, was that on the other side of the castle, behind the heavy oak door of the solar, a sealed letter was being placed into Lady Matilda's hands. A letter that would decide whether Elowen lived or died. The solar was lit by one candle. Lady Matilda sat in her tall chair. She did not rise when the steward placed the letter on the table. She did not speak. The wax was black. The seal was a bird with 3 eyes, pressed deep enough that the paper had cracked around the edges of it. She knew that seal. She had known it for a long time. Her hands did not move for almost a minute. Then they did. Carefully. The way someone handles a knife they are not sure is theirs. She read it once. She read it again. The candle made a small noise as it burned through a knot in the wick. Lady Matilda reached for the wine glass on the table and discovered her hand was shaking. She set it down without drinking. She closed her eyes. She breathed through her nose, the way she had taught herself to breathe years ago in another room. On another night, when she had also held something in her hands she could not give back. When she opened her eyes, she did not look at the letter. She looked across the corridor, across the courtyard, across the castle she had built around herself like armor. She looked toward the maid's quarters. And the expression on her face was not the expression anyone in that castle had ever seen on her. It was not the cold calculation she wore in court. It was not the tight politeness she wore at dinner. It was not even the contempt she sometimes spent on her staff like coin. It was something older than all of those. Something that lived under all of those. The look of a woman who had spent 10 years pretending she did not care about a thing she had only ever cared about. She stayed that way for a long time. Then she got up. She walked the letter to the fire. She held it above the flames for a moment, considering. She did not drop it. She slid it into the pocket of her robe instead. Some weapons you keep close. She crossed the room. She stood at the window. The courtyard below was empty. The torches at the gate had burned down to stubs. Far to the south, beyond the wall, The forest was still dark and would be dark for an hour yet. She could see in her mind the road through that forest. She could see in her mind the kingdom at the end of that road. She had not let herself look in that direction for 10 years. She let herself look now. Her reflection in the window was older than she remembered it being yesterday. The candle behind her caught the silver at her temples. She had earned every strand of it. She had earned them in ways nobody under her roof would ever know. She put her hand flat against the cold glass. "I am sorry," she thought. She did not say it out loud. She had not said anything out loud that mattered in 10 years. She turned away from the window. She returned to her chair. She did not sleep. She did not try. By the time the bell rang for the dawn watch, she had made 3 decisions. The first was that Roderick of Nightvale would still be received at her gate. The second was that the dinner she had planned would still take place. The third, she would not say aloud to anyone for some time yet. And the third was that if Roderick of Nightvale looked at the wrong girl in the wrong way at her table, she would have to act faster than she had ever acted in her life. She rose. She rang for her maid. She dressed in winter blue. She walked down to the steward office and gave him the same instructions she gave him every Tuesday, with one small addition. "Have the maids' quarters scrubbed, my lady." "They are scrubbed weekly," I said. "Scrubbed." "Yes, my lady." And he waited. "The girl Elowen is not to wait at the high table tomorrow night, my lady. She is the only one with the steady pour I know. She has poured for every state dinner since she turned 15. I know." Then she thought about it for one long breath. The right answer was to keep Elowen out of the hall entirely. The right answer was to put her in the kitchens and lock the kitchen door. The right answer was to send her, that morning, to the far holding on the eastern moor and let her stay there until the King of Nightvale was safely on his road home with a signed contract and a confirmed bride. The right answer would draw attention. The right answer would make the girls in the laundry talk. The right answer would make the senior maids notice. The right answer would tell every set of eyes in this castle, including the eyes she did not know belonged to enemies, that Elowen was a girl worth hiding. The wrong answer was the only one she could afford. "She will pour." The steward looked confused. She watched his confusion land and settle and not understand itself. She did not help him understand. She returned her eyes to the day book on his desk. "That will be all." He left. Lady Mathilde stood at the window of the steward's office for a moment after he was gone. Out in the corridor, somewhere far away, a small voice was laughing. A maid, probably Greta. Greta was always laughing at something she should not be laughing at. Lady Mathilde closed her eyes. The letter in her pocket weighed more than the chair. 2 nights' ride to the north. In a hall of pale stone the size of a small village, the elders of Nightvale were arguing. Roderick stood at the head of the long table. He had not slept. He had not changed his shirt. His tunic still smelled like forest smoke, and his eyes were the wrong color again, yellow at the edges, threatening to go further. The elders, who had known him since he was a boy, were trying very hard not to notice. Not noticing was a skill the elders had spent decades perfecting. Alaric was the oldest. White hair down to his shoulders. Hands that did not shake. He folded those hands on the table and waited until the room was quiet. "Your Majesty, what happened last night?" "You know what happened. I would like to hear you say it." "My wolf chose." "From outside the circle." "From outside the circle." Bertram leaned forward. Younger than Alaric. Sharper. He had the kind of face that always looked like it was already disagreeing with you. "Your Majesty." "The agreement with Lady Mathilde. The marriage contract. Both kingdoms have been informed. The procession arrives at her castle in 3 days. Cancel it." The silence that followed had weight. Alaric did not blink. "Your Majesty." "Cancel it. That agreement was signed by your father's hand. It binds 2 kingdoms. It is the last surviving treaty from the border wars. If we cancel it, we will be telling Mathilde, and through her every other house on the southern reach, that the word of a Nightvale king is not worth the parchment it is written on. My word stands. My wolf does not. Your wolf is part of your word. Then my wolf has already decided." Bertram tried a different angle. He was good at angles. "Who is she? I don't know. You don't know." "Not yet, Your Majesty. The council cannot dissolve a treaty on the basis of a scent a king caught on a forest wind. It was not a forest wind." Alaric raised one hand. "Just enough to stop the room." "Tell us," so Roderick told them. Not everything. He had never told anyone everything, but he told them enough. The clearing, the line of women, the moment a smell had entered his ribcage like a second pulse. The way his body had stopped before his mind had caught up. The way his wolf had refused with a will he had never felt before, to take another step toward the line. And then, when he had finally let go, the slope, the blood scent at the bottom of it, the trail vanishing into mud. I should have killed something. I didn't. The wolf wouldn't. He found her there. He saw her bleeding, and he walked away. Alaric looked at him for a long time. That is not how a wolf behaves. I know. That is how a mate behaves. The room got quieter than it had been. Bertram set both hands flat on the table. Then we have a problem. We have a path. We have a problem with a path inside it. Roderick looked at them both. He let the yellow leave his eyes. It took effort. It always took effort now. He had learned the difference between the wolf using him and him using the wolf. The line was thinner than anyone in this room understood. I am going to Matilda's castle. Alaric closed his eyes. Your Majesty, I am going to dissolve the contract in person. I am going to do it with respect. I am going to do it with the appropriate compensation. And then I am going to find her. And if Matilda refuses to release you from the contract, she won't, and if she does, she won't. Bertram exhaled through his teeth. Your Majesty, with respect, you are not negotiating right now. You are announcing. Yes, that is not the same thing. I know. Alaric opened his eyes. He looked at Roderick the way a grandfather looks at a grandson who is about to do something the grandfather has already done, with pity, with recognition, with the small private fear of a man who has watched the same mistake be made twice in one lifetime, 3 days. We ride to the southern reach. We will support whatever you decide on the road. We ask only that you let us prepare a fallback. You can prepare anything you want. That is not the same as a yes. I know, the elders rose. Roderick did not. He stayed at the head of the table for a long time after they had gone. The room held the smell of cold stone and beeswax, and the particular tension of a place that had just heard a king say something it could not take back. He pressed his thumb hard against the bridge of his nose. His wolf was quiet. His wolf was almost never quiet. He could still smell her, 2 nights of cold air between them. And he could still smell her under his own skin, the way you can still smell smoke on your hands, a week after a fire. What are you, little intruder? He did not say it. He just thought it. The wolf inside him heard it anyway, and stretched the way an animal stretches when it has woken up after a long sleep into a world that had finally started making sense. Outside the council chamber, in the small antechamber where pages waited, a young page boy in dark green was tying his cloak. He had heard nothing of the council. He had been outside the door the entire time. He bowed politely to Alaric and Bertram as they passed. He bowed politely to the king when the king came out. He waited until all 3 were down the corridor. Then he slipped through a side door, took the servant's stair, crossed the lower yard, and was on a horse within 10 minutes. The horse rode south. The boy carried no letter. He did not need one. The thing he carried was in his head, and the man who had sent him to Nightfale 4 years ago to wait in exactly this kind of antechamber, for exactly this kind of council, had given him 3 sentences to memorize, and 1 direction. The boy rode hard. The procession entered the courtyard at the 3rd bell. Elowen did not see it. Elowen was not allowed to see it. She was kept in the linen cupboard with 2 armfuls of clean towels, and a senior maid who had decided, for no reason anyone could explain, that the cupboard needed inventorying that exact afternoon. The senior maid counted towels. Elowen counted breaths. The horns outside rose and fell. Boots clattered on stone. A voice she did not know, deep and careful, returned the formal greeting Matilda's herald offered at the gate. Welcome to the southern reach. The honor is mine. She closed her eyes for 1 second. Just one. The cupboard smelled like cedar and old lavender. The senior maid did not look at her. Then the bells stopped. Then the cupboard door opened. A different maid, pale, out of breath. She's needed in the courtyard. She's needed here, my lady, said the courtyard. Now, the senior maid looked at Elowen the way a person looks at a glass they have just been told to drop. With suspicion, with a small bloom of pity. Without lifting a hand to stop it, go. So Elowen went. She did not run. She made herself not run. Because running attracted attention. Because attention was the thing she had spent 10 years not attracting. Because the corridor was long, and full of soldiers she did not know, and her sleeves were rolled, and her apron was wet at the hem, and her hair was falling out of its pin again. And any one of those things was a small disaster, and all of them together was the end of the world. She turned the corner. She stepped into the courtyard. And she stopped breathing. Riders. Banners. A line of horses with breath steaming in the autumn air. Mathilde at the top of the great staircase in winter blue, posture perfect, smile placed exactly where it needed to be. The household lined up on both sides of the steps. And in the middle of all of it, half turned away from her, the man from the clearing. She had been told. She had been warned. She had told herself all morning that she had already seen him from a distance, and that distance had used up the worst of him, and that there was no surprise left. She had been wrong. The bucket in her hand was not her fault. She had not picked it up. Some other maid had pressed it into her hands the moment she stepped outside. Cold water, half full. For the horses, somebody had said. Bring it to the trough. She had nodded. She had not registered. She was already moving past the bottom of the staircase when his head turned yellow, not the patient gold of a man at court. Yellow. The wolf was awake. The wolf had been awake since the gate. The bucket slipped. Water hit the cobblestones in a long dark stain. The sound it was very loud in a courtyard that had just gone quiet. She did not look down at the bucket. She did not look down at the water. She did not move. She stood there in the middle of a courtyard full of people who were now, all of them looking at her, and her eyes were the only part of her body she could still operate, and her eyes had not lifted from his. He did not move either. The first soldier in the line shifted his weight. Somebody coughed. Mathilde, at the top of the stairs, said something polite to the steward without turning her head, which Elowen would remember later as a small mercy, because it gave the courtyard somewhere else to look for 1 second. Roderick stepped down, not toward Mathilde, not toward the line of nobles. He stepped down toward Elowen. 1 stride, 2. The world held its breath the way the courtyard had just held its breath. His boots made no sound on the stone, which was impossible, which was the kind of detail her mind preserved as it failed her in every other direction. He stopped 3 paces away. His voice did not rise. It did not have to. You, she did not answer. I thought I had imagined you. You hadn't. The words were out before she could stop them. Stupid, stupid. She had not meant to speak. She had not meant to confirm anything. Her mouth had simply opened on instinct, the way a hand opens to catch a falling thing. A small twitch at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile, worse than a smile. Recognition, no, I hadn't then. Mercifully. Mathilde's voice from the top of the stairs. Your Majesty, he turned. Slowly. As if turning cost him something, he climbed the steps and bowed over Mathilde's hand the way kings bow, which was barely. The household resumed breathing. Somebody picked up the dropped bucket. Somebody hissed at Elowen to move. She moved. She did not feel her legs. She walked to the trough. She poured the half a bucket of water that was left into it. She walked back to the kitchens with the empty bucket swinging from her hand. And the entire way she heard, behind her, the polite murmur of a king, who was being introduced to 17 people whose names he was not bothering to remember, because none of them were hers. In the kitchens, she set the bucket down very carefully on a shelf where it did not belong. The cook looked at her. The cook did not ask. The cook had survived under Mathilde for 22 years by not asking. The cook handed her a knife and a basket of onions and pointed at a stool by the window Elowen sat. She picked up the first onion. She started to peel. Her hands were not shaking. Her hands were not shaking, and she did not know why her hands were not shaking, because the rest of her was, deep down, somewhere under the ribs, in a place she had not known had been waiting to shake. The onion was sharp. Her eyes watered. She let them. It was a convenient excuse. The dinner was a kind of slow drowning. The long hall was lit with too many candles. The tables had been arranged in a U Mathilde at the head, Roderick on her right. Below them, on both sides, the household nobles of the southern reach in their best wool. Below them, at the far ends, the men of Nightvale's retinue. The cooks had outdone themselves. Pheasant, venison, 3 soups, a pastry shaped like a stag. Elowen was on the wine, she had argued. Quietly, privately. With the household steward, before service. She had asked, very softly, if she could be moved to the kitchens for the night. The steward had looked at her. The steward had said, "My lady asked for you specifically." Elowen had not said anything else. She had braided her hair tight. She had washed her face twice. She had practiced in the small dim corridor behind the servant's door, the angle of the pour. The wine had to go in without splash. The pitcher had to be steady. The hand had to be invisible. She walked the line. She filled the glasses on the far end first. Working her way up, she moved between the chairs the way she had been taught, right shoulder forward, left hand behind the back, eyes down. She filled one glass, another, a third. None of the men at the table looked at her. That was the entire point of being good at this. She reached Matilde's place. She poured. Matilde did not acknowledge her. She reached the place beside Matilde. The pitcher tipped, the wine flowed. Roderick's hand was on the table. Flat, relaxed. Fingers spread on the dark wood. She kept her eyes on the rim of the glass. She kept her breathing low. She kept her own hands steady, and she finished the pour, and she lifted the pitcher, and she began to step away. His hand moved, not a grab, not a snatch, a small adjustment. His knuckle slid 1 inch along the wood and brushed the back of her wrist as she pulled away, not by accident. She knew it was not by accident, the way she knew the bell at dawn was not by accident. She did not flinch. She did not gasp. She did not stop walking. She made her body keep moving the way she had made her body keep moving in the forest after the slope, by force, by refusal. She filled the next glass, then the next. She did not look back at him. Not once, not even when she felt the weight of his eyes the entire walk back to the sideboard, where she stood with the pitcher pressed against her stomach and her thumbnail digging hard into the curve of the handle. Across the table, 2 of Matilde's ladies were murmuring, a glance toward Elowen, a small, careful smile, the kind of smile that meant they had seen the touch, the kind of smile that would be repeated by sundown in 3 different corridors. Matilde saw the smile. Matilde saw the glance. Matilde turned her head. Slowly, her eyes touched the 2 ladies first. They stopped smiling. Matilde's eyes then traveled, with the patience of a woman who knew the room belonged to her, to Elowen. And here was the thing nobody at that table understood. Here was the thing Elowen herself did not understand for years. Matilde looked at her, and Matilde did not say anything. And Matilde, who had publicly slapped a kitchen girl 2 weeks before for less, who had docked a footman a month's pay for a stain on a cuff, who had once made a senior maid kneel on rice in the chapel for an hour for the crime of misaddressing a steward, did absolutely nothing. She turned back to her plate. She made a small comment to the king about the venison. Elowen breathed. She did not understand the breath. She did not understand that the absence of punishment was a punishment, in its way. She only understood that she had not been struck down, that something in the air had decided to let her pass. Halfway through the second course, the conversation at the head of the table turned, with the careful slowness of a knife being unwrapped, to the contract. Matilde lifted her glass. The candle behind her caught the rim and made it briefly gold. Your Majesty, I trust we will find time tomorrow to discuss the joining of our houses. The riders have been waiting a long time for the formal announcement. Roderick lifted his own glass. He did not drink. I would prefer tonight. A small pause in the room, not silence, just a thinning of the chatter. The kind of thinning Matilde could read better than anyone alive. Tonight is for the road dust, Your Majesty. Tomorrow is for treaties. Tomorrow I will say the same thing I am going to say tonight. The difference is 12 hours of your steward's drafting paperwork that I am going to ask them to throw away. The ladies at the lower end of the table had stopped pretending not to listen. Matilde set her glass down. Her smile did not move. Her eyes did. Your Majesty is direct. Your Majesty has always been told I am. Then say what you came to say. I came to release the contract. I came to do it with respect. I came to offer the appropriate compensation, in coin and in land, for whatever inconvenience this causes the Southern Reach. I came to ask that you accept the release with the same dignity with which it is being offered. The room had gone properly quiet now. Matilde did not blink. Matilde did not move. Matilde looked at the King of Night Vale for what felt, to everyone at the table, like a full minute, and was probably 4 seconds. And the reason is not for the table, Your Majesty. Is not for the table, my lady. Matilde inclined her head, just enough. Then we will speak after the meal. Yes. She raised her glass again. She turned smoothly to the elder lord on her left and asked him a question about his hounds. The hounds were a long story. The hounds saved the table. The chatter started again. The musicians, who had been holding a note for too long, resumed. Elowen, at the sideboard, with the pitcher pressed to her stomach, did not move for a long time. She could not sleep. She tried. She closed her eyes. She counted backwards from 100. She got to 41. She started again. She got to 58. She gave up. The room was warm. Greta was snoring. Cosima on the far cot was awake too. Elowen could tell by the rhythm of her breathing. Cosima had always been the kind of person who knew in her sleep when somebody else in the room was not sleeping. Go, go, Cosima whispered. Go where? Wherever you go. I don't go anywhere. You go to the north wall. You think we don't notice? I don't. You do. Go. I'll cover for you if anyone asks. So she went. She climbed the narrow stair to the north battlements, the most isolated stretch. The one the guard cycle skipped after midnight, because the wind up there was bitter, and there was nothing worth defending on that side except sky. She had been going there for years. Whenever the small room got too small, whenever the silence of the castle got too loud, the wind hit her in the face, the kind of cold that hurt. She set her hands on the stone parapet. She breathed in until her lungs ached. She breathed out better. She closed her eyes. She felt him before she heard him. It was not a sound. It was not a footstep. It was a pressure. The kind of pressure you feel when somebody has stepped into a room you thought was empty. Her shoulders rose. Her stomach dropped. Her body knew before her mind agreed. She opened her eyes. She turned her head. He was leaning against the parapet on the opposite side. Arms crossed, cloak loose. Hair down for the first time since she had seen him, falling over one shoulder. The light from the moon turned the color of it almost silver. He was not surprised. He had been waiting. She tried to speak. Nothing came out the first time. She swallowed. Tried again. How long? Long enough. For what? For you to come up? I didn't come for you. I know. Then why are you here? He pushed off the parapet. The distance between them changed by exactly one stride. He stopped. He did not close the rest of it because I would have come here anyway, and you would have come here anyway. And the only question was which of us got here first. You think a great deal of yourself. I think a great deal of you. She looked at her hands on the stone. White at the knuckles. Don't what? Don't say things like that. Why? Because they sound like the kind of thing somebody says when they want something they shouldn't have. That is fair. And what? And what do you want? He did not answer right away. The wind pulled a strand of hair across her face. She did not move it. He took one more step. Now she could feel the heat coming off him, which was absurd in a wind like that, but absurd was the working condition of every minute she had spent in his company. I want to know your name. You know my name. I want to hear you say it. Elowen. Elowen. He said it the way a person says a word in a language they are still learning. Carefully. Slowly. Like he was afraid of bending the sound. That doesn't change anything. It changes everything. I am a maid in a castle that doesn't even belong to my family. And you came here to marry the woman who owns me. I came here to break that contract. I told the council. I told her tonight. I told the whole hall, in case you missed it. That stopped her. She turned her head fully, looked at him. The yellow had left his eyes again. Gold now. The man, not the wolf. You broke it. I broke it. Why? You know why. Say it. He looked at her for a long time. My wolf chose. My wolf has never chosen. My wolf walked into that ritual the way it has walked into the last 5, with patience and good manners and absolutely no interest in any of the women in the circle. Then a wind shifted. Then I caught one thread of a smell I had never smelled before. Then I stopped being able to hear the drums. Then I tore through 4 of my own guards, because they had the audacity to try to hold me back. Then I tracked you to a slope where you had fallen. Then I stood at the top of that slope, with the smell of your blood in my throat, and I did not come down. Why didn't you? Because the wolf knew. And the man was not ready yet. And the wolf, for the first time in my life, listened to the man. She did not know what to do with that. She did not know what to do with any of it. You are my mate. I am a human. You are my mate. I am a maid. You are my mate. I do not know how. I do not know why. The elders do not know either. I am not asking you to understand it. I am asking you to come with me. Her hands left the stone. She stepped back 1 step. 2, I can't. You can. I can't. What are you afraid of? You. That is at least honest. He moved. Quick. Not a lunge, a step. His hand on her waist before she could move out of reach. Not a grip. Just contact, steady. The kind of touch that asks a question. She did not push him away, which was the worst part. She froze. She let her own body answer the question before her mouth could. Tell me to let go. Let go. He let go. It was instant. She turned. She ran for the stair. She did not look back. She did not see, behind her against the dark of the inner wall, a shape that had been there the entire time. A figure, cloak pulled close. Watching. The figure waited until the stair door closed. Then it slipped down the inner stair the opposite way and disappeared into the lower halls. The maid's door opened at the second hour of the morning without a knock. The candle came in first. Then Mathilde. Then the silence that came with Mathilde, which was thicker than most silences. Greta woke first, sat bolt upright. Cosima opened her eyes and went very still under her blanket. Elowen, who had not fallen asleep yet, simply rose. She did not speak. She stood next to her cot, bare feet on cold stone, hair undone. The night shift she wore was thin and patched at the shoulder. The candle in Mathilde's hand made the patches visible. Mathilde stepped in. The door closed behind her. "You know why I am here?" "No, my lady." "A lie." "No, my lady." "A second one." "I taught you better than that." That stopped Elowen in a way the first sentence had not. Because Mathilde had never once admitted to teaching her anything. Mathilde gave orders. Mathilde did not teach. "I do not know what you mean." Mathilde looked at her. Not the cold look. Not the contemptuous one. Something underneath. Something raw. Gone in an instant. Replaced by the practice surface. "I was told what happened on the north wall tonight. My lady, do not insult me by pretending." Elowen closed her mouth. Mathilde looked at the two girls in the room. Greta with the blanket clutched to her chest. Cosima curled around herself like a small animal. Mathilde's eyes lingered on them long enough that they both lowered their heads. "You will say nothing of this. To anyone. Ever. The dungeon has been empty a long time. It would be inconvenient to clean it." Greta nodded. Cosima nodded. Neither of them looked up. Mathilde turned back to Elowen. And here was the moment. Here was the thing that would, much later, become the only conversation in Elowen's life, that she would replay every night before sleep for the rest of her years. "You have 1 hour, my lady. You will gather your things. There are not many. You will take the kitchen door. You will not take the road north. You will take the south path through the orchard, and you will not stop walking until the sun comes up, and you will not come back to this castle. Not for one of these girls. Not for the king. Not for anything you have left behind in this room. My lady, please tell me what I did." Mathilde looked at her for 1 second, for 1 whole second. Something passed across her face that did not belong to the woman who had run the Southern Reach for 30 years. It was small. It was fast. It was the look of a person watching the only living thing they had ever loved walk toward an open trapdoor and being unable to say so. Then it was gone. "You were born, my lady. That was your only sin. And it is sufficient. I don't understand." "You don't have to understand. You have to leave," he said. "I know what he said. He said he would protect me. He cannot. You don't know that. I know more than you understand." "Then tell me." "No, Mathilde." The name was out before Elowen knew she had said it. She had never called Mathilde by her name in 10 years. Not once. The word landed in the small room like a dropped plate. Mathilde did not slap her. Did not flinch. Did not look surprised. Looked, in fact, as if she had been waiting for that Singstian word for 10 years and was relieved finally to hear it. "Get your things, please." "Get your things." Elowen got her things. It was a small bundle. A shawl. A second shift. A piece of dry bread Cosima pressed into her hand without speaking. An old wooden comb that had belonged to a woman she did not remember. She wrapped them in the shawl. She tied the corners. She lifted the bundle to her chest. She looked at Mathilde. "Tell me one thing. I will tell you nothing. One thing." "What? Did you ever, in 10 years, in any single moment, see me as anything other than a thing in your house?" Mathilde's eyes did not change. Mathilde's voice did not change. "No, then I will go." "Good." She went. She did not hug Greta. She did not hug Cosima. She could not afford to. If she touched either of them, she would break. And if she broke, she would not leave. And if she did not leave, she did not know what would happen to her or to them. She stepped past Mathilde without meeting her eyes. She took the back stair. She crossed the kitchens. She slipped through the kitchen door into the orchard. The orchard was dark. The trees were bare. Her shoes were wrong for the weather. The bundle pressed against her ribs, where the bruise from the slope had not finished healing. She walked, behind her, in the maid's room. After the door closed and Mathilde turned to leave, neither Greta nor Cosima saw the thing that happened next. Mathilde walked 3 steps down the corridor. Then she stopped. Then she put one hand flat against the cold stone of the wall. Then she let her forehead rest against the back of her own hand. And in the dark, with no one watching, one tear made it from her left eye to the line of her jaw before she caught herself. She straightened. She wiped her face with the cuff of her robe. She kept walking. Some sorrows do not get the courtesy of being seen. Why would a woman threaten the very girl she could spent 10 years quietly protecting? That question, in that small hour of the morning, did not yet have an answer either of them was ready to speak. Roderick woke at the 4th hour with a feeling like a hand pressed against his sternum from the inside. He sat up. The room was cold. The fire had burned down. He did not look at the fire. He looked at the door. She was gone. He did not need to ask how he knew. He had spent 2 days in a castle where the air had begun to taste like her, and the air had stopped tasting like her, and his body had registered the absence the way his body registered a missing limb. He was dressed and on the stair before he was fully awake. He took the courtyard at a run. The stable boy was asleep against a beam. Roderick did not wake him. He saddled the closest horse himself. Hands moving, mind moving faster than hands. She left, or she was made to leave. Which? It does not matter which. Find her, find her, find her. He led the horse out through the side gate. The watchman did not stop him. The watchman did not have the authority to stop him. He swung up. The hooves struck stone, then dirt, then the soft earth of the road. He inhaled. The wolf was awake. The wolf had been awake before he had opened his eyes in the room. He turned the horse toward the south path. He did not know how he knew. He simply did. The wolf knew. He rode. She had been walking for an hour. Maybe, too, the moon had set. The sky to the east was beginning to thin, that first watery gray that comes before color. She had crossed 2 streams and a low stone wall. Her feet were wet. Her shoulders were stiff. The bundle felt heavier with every step. She heard the horse before she saw it. She stopped in the middle of the road. She did not turn. She did not need to. The same pressure as the battlement. The same certainty. The same body before mind recognition. The horse slowed. Stopped. He dismounted. She listened to his boots on the dirt. Don't what? Don't tell me you came after me. I came after you. You should not have. You knew I would. I hoped you wouldn't. That is not the same as not knowing. She closed her eyes. She opened them. She turned around. He was closer than she expected. 3 paces, his hair was loose. There was a streak of mud on his cheek where a branch had caught him. He did not look like a king. He looked like a man who had not slept and had ridden too hard and had only one thing left in him. Why did you leave? Because I had to. Who told you that? Nobody had to tell me. Who told you? Roderick? Who? A breath. A pause she should not have allowed. Mathilde. His jaw tightened. Why? Because I am a maid, and I am dangerous to her, and she does not want any of this on her household. That is not the reason. That is the reason she gave. That is not the reason. Then what is? I don't know yet. But I will. You can't do anything about it. She owns the southern reach. She owns me. She owns the contracts and the lands and the labor on those lands. You cannot. I can. Stop saying that. Why? Because every time you say it, I start to believe you. Good. She turned away from him. Tried to. Made it half a step. His hand caught her wrist. Same touch as the dinner table. Different question. Stay. I can't. Stay. Roderick, stay. She turned back. She did not mean to. He was always already too close. He was always already too close. I do not know who I am to you. I do not know what your wolf saw. I do not know why a king would ride through the dark for a girl who scrubbed his host's stones yesterday. I do not know any of it. And every word you say to me makes me less able to leave, and I have to leave, because if I do not leave by morning, Mathilde will. He was not listening to the words. He was listening to her mouth. She knew it. He bent his head. She did not move. The kiss was not gentle. It was not slow. It was the kind of kiss that arrived with 2 days of unspoken pressure behind it. His mouth on hers, both his hands at her waist. The bundle slipped from her arm. She did not notice. She had 2 fists in the front of his tunic. She did not remember putting them there. She made a sound she would not have admitted to. He answered with one of his own. When they broke, she was breathing as if she had run again. He pressed his forehead to hers. Come back. I can't go back. Then come with me. Roderick, come with me. She would have said yes. She was about to say yes. Her mouth was already shaping the word. 3 days she had been in the same building as this man, and her mouth was already shaping the word. And she did not have time to be ashamed of herself, because something moved in the trees. Not a deer, not wind, a shape, a second shape, a third. He felt it before she did. His head came up. His grip on her waist shifted. He turned her in one motion, putting his body between hers and the road. The wolf was rising in his eyes. She felt it through his hands. Get behind me. What? Get behind me. 3 men stepped out of the tree line. Black cloaks. Hoods up. The kind of stillness that did not belong to ordinary travelers. They did not speak. The one in the middle drew a short, curved blade. The two flanking him drew straight ones. Roderick's voice dropped to something not entirely human. Run. She did not run. She backed up, 2 steps. Hands flat against his shoulder blades. He moved her behind him with his free arm, never taking his eyes off the men. Roderick, run when I tell you. They will kill you. They are not here for me. That stopped her cold. The men advanced, 3 abreast. They were not looking at him. They were looking at her. The middle assassin moved first. He came in fast. He came in trained. He went for her, and Roderick was already moving, and the shape of Roderick was not the shape of a man anymore by the time he met the blade. She did not see the change. She felt it. A sound like wet rope tearing. Heat. A wave of force as the air around him rearranged. Where Roderick had been standing was a wolf the size of a small horse, pale gold, eyes burning, teeth already in motion. The middle assassin did not finish his step. The wolf broke him at the throat. The second came from the right. The wolf turned, took the blade across one flank, and turned the second man into a shape that no longer matched what a body should look like. The third tried to back up. The third did not get the chance. It was over in under a minute. The road was wet. The wolf was breathing hard, head low, ribs heaving. He stood between her and the bodies. He did not look at her. He could not look at her in this shape yet. She did not move. She did not scream. She had not screamed at any point. She would notice later with a small private worry that she had not screamed. The wolf shook himself. The shape rolled back. Skin, hair, the man, naked to the waist where the tunic had ripped through. His knees gave for 1 second. He caught himself. He turned. You are not hurt. No, you are sure. I am sure. Are you? I will be? He crossed the distance between them. He took her face in both hands and looked at her the way a man looks at a thing he has just nearly lost. Then he turned and walked back to the bodies. He knelt by the middle one. He pulled the hood back. He examined the dead man's neck. He went still. Roderick. He did not answer Roderick. What is it? He turned the dead man's head, just enough that she could see the side of the throat. Tattooed there in black ink, faded by years but not enough, was a small mark. 3 eyes inside the silhouette of a bird. His voice came out flat. That should not exist. What is it? A mark? Of what? Of a house that died 10 years ago. He stood. He looked at the trees the men had come from. He looked at the road. He looked back at her, and the gold in his eyes was something else now. Anger, but underneath it, a colder thing. Memory. Lord Varek, who is that? A king of a kingdom called Ravensmark that should not have a king anymore. He raided a southern bloodline a decade ago. He killed every member of it the elders could find. The elders said he died in the last of those raids. The elders were wrong, and these men are his. Why would they come for me? He looked at her for a long moment. That is the question. He walked her back to the horse. He did not let go of her hand. He lifted her up before he mounted behind her. The bundle had landed in a patch of dry leaves. He bent and retrieved it without speaking, and pressed it into her lap. He swung up. He turned the horse. Where are we going? Back. To Mathilde. To Mathilde. She just sent me away, I know. And someone, in the same hour, sent 3 trained killers down the same road. So either she sent them, in which case she will tell me why, or she did not, in which case she has something to tell me anyway. Roderick? What? She is dangerous. So am I. He turned the horse north. Behind them, on the road, the 3 bodies cooled in the morning dew. The mark on the middle one's throat looked, in the first light, almost like it was watching. The hall of the southern reach was not arranged for an audience at that hour. Mathilde was at the window. She had not changed. She had not slept. She did not turn when the doors opened. She knew the sound of his stride by now. She had known it would come back. She heard the second set of footsteps behind him. She heard them stop. She closed her eyes for 1 second. Just one. Then she turned. Your Majesty, 3 men. South Road. An hour past dawn. I did not. 3 men with the mark of Varek on their throats. Sent down the same road you sent her down, in the same hour. Tell me again you did not. She looked at Elowen. Just once. Just for a second. And what was in her face in that second was something Elowen would think about for the rest of her life. It was not hate. It was not contempt. It was the face of a woman who had been racing a clock for 10 years, and had just been told the clock had won. I did not send the men. Then who did? He did. Varek is dead. You believed he was dead. I never did. You knew. I suspected. You did not warn me. I could not. Why? Because if I had warned you, you would have come for him. And if you had come for him, he would have moved against her. And as long as she was in this castle, as a maid, with no name, with no record, with no one but me knowing what she was, he had no target. He had been hunting an empty field for 10 years. I gave him the empty field on purpose. Elowen could not breathe. What I am, Mathilde did not look at her. That is enough for tonight. No, child, no. You do not get to call me child. I am not asking for the right to call you anything. Then what is going on? Mathilde lifted her chin. The composure was back. The mask was back. Behind it, something was running out of road. But the mask was excellent and held. Your Majesty, take her to Night Vale, tonight. Now, do not stop at any town. Do not let her out of the saddle. I will give you my fastest horses. I will give you my own men if you want them. The moment that she crosses your border, she is your concern, and his reach, the parts of it I know of, ends at that border. You think his reach ends at my border. I think it slows there. That is all I have to offer. You will tell me everything. I will tell you what is useful to know on the road and nothing else tonight. The rest is for a room with a lock and a fire, and 3 more days I do not have, Mathilde, Your Majesty. If you are lying to me about any of this, I will come back here, and I will tear this hall down stone by stone, and I will not be polite about it. I know, then we understand each other. We do. He turned. He took Elowen by the elbow. He guided her toward the door. At the threshold, Elowen stopped. She turned. She looked at Mathilde across the long room. The candles were still burning. Mathilde was very pale. You said I was born? Yes. You said being born was my sin? Yes. Whose daughter am I? For one long moment, Mathilde said nothing. She looked at the floor. She looked at the wall. She looked finally at Elowen, a good woman's. It was the most honest sentence anyone had said in the room that morning. It was also the only one Elowen would hear clearly for years in her dreams. Roderick led her out. The courtyard was a blur of orders. 2 of Mathilde's own men were already bringing fresh horses. A maid Elowen did not know pressed a bundle of dry clothes and a wedge of cheese into her hands. Greta was nowhere. Cosima was nowhere. Elowen did not have time to ask where they were. She did not have time to feel the absence as anything more than a small bruise underneath the larger one. Roderick lifted her into the saddle set in front of him. He did not ask if she was ready. He knew she was not. They rode anyway. The southern reach fell behind them, like a stone dropped down a well. The first hours of the ride were silent, not hostile, not tender, just silent. The horses ran, the road unrolled. The sun came up cold and yellow and stayed cold. Roderick's arm was around her waist. Steady. He did not speak. She did not speak. There was nothing to speak about that the wind could not say better. At a fork in the road in the late morning, 2 of Mathilde's outriders peeled off and circled wide. They were checking the ditches. They had not been told to do this. They had simply been told that the girl in the saddle ahead of them was to reach Night Vale. And they had decided, between themselves, what that required. Elowen watched them ride into the trees and back out again. Are they always like this, Mathilde's men? Yes, they are good, they are. She thought about that. She trains them herself, yes. She trains them like she is expecting an attack, yes. For 10 years. For 10 years, he let that sit. He did not push her further toward the thing she was almost ready to think. They stopped briefly at midday to water the horses at a small stream. He helped her down. She stood with one hand against the horse's flank, and her legs felt strange beneath her. He noticed. Of course he noticed. You should eat. I am not hungry. Eat anyway. She ate. She did not taste the cheese. She drank from the stream when he handed her his own water skin. The water was cold enough to hurt her teeth. It helped. She slept once, against his chest, for the better part of an hour. He did not wake her. In her sleep, she saw a woman. The woman had hair the color of old silver. She was kneeling. She was holding Elowen's hand. She was telling her, very quietly, to run and not look back, to find the orchard, the orchard, the orchard. There was a ring on the woman's finger, a simple band. A small green stone in the center of it. The woman pressed the ring into Elowen's palm for 1 second before she pushed her toward the trees. The child ran. The child fell. The child got up. The child kept running. And when the child finally stopped, in the orchard the woman had named, somebody was already there. Somebody had been waiting. Somebody knelt in front of the child and held out a hand. Elowen woke with her hand in a fist. She opened it. There was nothing in it. There had not been a ring there for 10 years. But she remembered now that there had once been. She did not say so. She let her head rest back against Roderick's chest and watched the road unroll under the horse's hooves, and held the empty palm tight against her stomach as if there were still something to hide there. The road climbed. The trees changed. The pines that grew this far north had a different smell. Sharper, cleaner. The light through them came down in long stripes that the horse's shadow cut as they passed. Twice in the afternoon, the outriders signaled and the column slowed. Twice, after a careful minute, they signaled again and the column moved on. No one came out of the trees. No one had to. Roderick's arm did not loosen. She found, somewhere in the second slow stretch, that her own hand had come up to rest over the back of his. She did not remember when. She did not move it. He did not comment. The kindest thing he had done for her, in 3 days of doing things she did not have language for, was not commenting. The light began to change. The sky to the west turned the color of weak honey. The trees thinned. The road bent. And then they were climbing one final ridge, and the horse crested it, and the world ahead opened. She straightened in the saddle. Roderick's arms steadied her. There, Nightvale came into view in the gold of late afternoon. Elowen had been half asleep against Roderick's chest. The horse had slowed. She lifted her head. She squinted into the long light, and there it was. Pale stone, towers that did not match the towers she had grown up looking at. A wall that did not curve the way Matilda's wall curved. A castle that had been built by people who expected to keep what they had built. She had never been more than half a day from the southern reach in her life. Now she was looking at the home of the man behind her, and the home of the man behind her was bigger than the entire village she had been told she came from. Which was, now that she thought about it, a thing she had simply been told. By Matilda, 10 years ago, with no proof, with no name attached. Her stomach turned. Behind her, Roderick expressed in a slow breath. His arm tightened once around her waist. Not possessive. Welcome home. It isn't home. It will be. You can't just say that. I just did, she would have argued. She did not have the energy. The wall was rising too fast. The gate was opening before they reached it. Somebody had been watching the road. Somebody had been told to watch. They rode through. The courtyard was already lining up. Men in dark green. 2 old men at the front of the line whose faces she did not know but whose stillness she recognized. The kind of stillness that belonged to people who had been in rooms when important things were decided and had stayed quiet on purpose. Roderick swung down. He lifted her down after. He did not put her down quickly. His hands stayed at her waist a beat longer than they needed to. Long enough that the older of the 2 men noticed and did not comment. Alaric stepped forward. Your Majesty. Alaric. And, this is Elowen. The name landed in the courtyard the way a coin lands on a table. Clean. Final, the way a king names what is his when he is making a point of doing so. Alaric did not bow to her. Not exactly. He inclined his head. The way one inclines a head to something one is not yet sure how to address. You will both want a bath and a meal. She will. I want the council in the inner chamber in 1 hour, Your Majesty. After 2 nights on a road, perhaps. 1 hour. Alaric did not push. Alaric never pushed. Alaric simply turned to the woman behind him, who turned to the woman behind her, and within a breath there were quiet instructions moving through the line like water. Elowen was led inside. She did not remember the corridor. She would later try and fail. The floors were warm. The walls were paneled in a pale wood she could not name. A bath was already drawing somewhere ahead of her. There was lavender in the air. Somebody handed her a robe she did not have to ask for. Somebody else asked, very gently, if she would like to eat first or wash first. She said wash. She could not remember being asked ever before in her life which she would like to do first. She washed. The water was hot enough to make the bruise along her ribs sing. She lay back in it. She closed her eyes. The woman who had asked her the question stayed in the room, quietly on the far side. Watching the door, not watching her. Elowen understood vaguely that the woman was a guard. She did not have the energy to find the idea strange. When she stepped out, the robe waiting for her was the wrong size. It was the right size. She had not been measured. Nobody had handled her clothes in 2 days. She slid one arm through. The sleeve fell exactly to her wrist. The collar sat exactly at her throat. Was this made for me? The guard answered without turning. It was made for the queen. There isn't a queen. Not yet. She looked at the sleeve. She looked at the seam at the shoulder. The stitches were small. The cloth was good. Whoever had made this had finished it that day. She sat down on the bench. She did not cry. She wanted to. She did not. By the time Roderick came to find her, the meal was on the table and the candles were lit and the room had been arranged for 2 people who had agreed to nothing yet, He had bathed too. His hair was wet. He had not bothered with a formal coat, loose tunic, bare forearms. He sat down across from her. He looked at her with the particular tiredness of a man who had ridden 3,000 decisions into a single courtyard. They want to do the ritual tonight, tonight, tonight. That is fast. You crossed our border 12 hours ago. The wolves in the city know it. They have known it since the gate. Known what? That a mate of the Alpha has arrived. They do not know who you are. They know what you are. What am I? That is what we are about to find out. She looked at her plate. There was bread on it. There was something stewed. There was wine she would not drink because the last time she had touched a wine pitcher his knuckle had brushed her wrist. And she did not trust herself with stemware in his presence. Roderick, yes, if I do this. If I let you do this. What does it mean? It means we are bound. The wolf to the wolf, the man to whatever you are, the pack to you, the throne to you. And if it doesn't take, it will take if, Lowen, if, a pause, then we will know that too. That is not reassuring. I am not in the business of reassuring you. What business are you in, telling you the truth? As fast as I can. Before someone else tells you a lie, she picked up the bread. She tore it in half. She did not eat. She set both halves down on the plate. Tell me what the ritual is, he told her. Briefly, cleanly, no flourishes. Old room, inner chamber, elders in a half ring. Words spoken in a language older than the pack. A bite at the curve of the neck. A shared moment. A pulse, if it took, between the two of them that would be impossible to mistake. Most mates faint, some do not. Either way, the bond either forms or does not. And if it doesn't form, it will. Stop, it will. You don't know that. I do. How? Because I have spent every minute of the last 3 days waiting for it to fail. And it has not. She looked at him for a long time. I am not a wolf, I know. You are about to put your teeth in the throat of a girl who is not a wolf. Yes, that does not concern you. Everything about this concerns me. None of it is going to stop me. She breathed in. All right, all right. The chamber was older than the rest of the castle. Lower ceiling. Black stone underfoot. 6 candles in a half ring. 2 more by the door. Alaric was there. Bertram was there. 4 other elders she did not know stood with them. None of them moved when she entered. None of them stared. All of them watched, the way a forest watches a deer step into a clearing. She wore the robe. It was white. Of course it was white. Her hair was down. Her shoulders were bare to the collarbone. Roderick stood at the center of the half ring in dark green. The wolf in him was so close to the surface, it was almost a second presence in the room. Alaric spoke. She did not understand the words. They were not for her. They were for the air. For the stone. For the thing in Roderick's chest that had been waiting since the clearing. The words went on for a long time. She did not move. When the words ended, the silence was different than the silence before them. Heavier, as if the room had taken a breath and was now holding it. Roderick stepped closer. He raised one hand. He moved her hair off her shoulder. His fingers traced the line of her neck the way a man traces a line on a map. His eyes met hers. Last chance. Stop asking me. I'll ask one more time. Don't. He lowered his head. The bite came in 2 parts. The first part was the wolf finding the place. The second part was the man pressing down. Heat. The heat was the first thing. A wave of it from the point of contact outward through her chest, her arms, her spine. The pain came a second behind the heat, and it was not the pain she had expected. It was not a wound. It was a key turning. Something opened, she heard him. Not his voice. His. The thing inside him. The wolf she had felt at the dinner table and on the battlement and on the road. It pressed against her like a hand against a door she had not known was a door. And the door opened. Her knees gave. He caught her. She knew his arms were under her before her body finished falling. She felt herself sinking into the dark behind her own eyes, and as she sank, the dark filled with something that should not have been there mere. It came in pieces, a field. Early light. A house in the distance with a slate roof, a woman's hand brushing the hair back from her forehead, a man's laugh, low, loud. A laugh she had not heard in 10 years and recognized like a song then. A different night, cold, smoke, the smell of smoke that was not from a hearth, running, bare feet on grass. A voice behind her shouting a name, her name, a different version of her name, shorter, older, a name a mother used then, a clearing in the trees, a woman she knew, a woman with hair the color of old silver. The same woman from the saddle dream. The woman was bleeding from her shoulder. The woman was kneeling. The woman was pressing something small and round and metal into the palm of a child. The child was her. The ring had a green stone. The ring was a simple band. The ring was warm from the woman's hand. The woman said, "Run, run to the orchard. Run and do not stop, and do not say your real name to anyone, not even to her, and not even to yourself, until I come for you." The woman pushed her toward the trees. The child ran. The child ran for a long time. The child fell. The child got up. The child kept running. And when the child finally stopped in the orchard the woman had named, somebody was already there. Somebody had been waiting. Somebody knelt in front of the child and held out a hand. The hand was Matilda's. The ring was already on Matilda's finger. Elowen came back to herself with a small, hard sound she did not know she had made. She was on a bed. She was clothed. The robe was gone. A different robe, looser, was draped over her. There was light through the high windows. Morning light. She had lost the night. Roderick was in the chair by the bed. He was leaning forward, elbows on his knees. He had not slept. He looked at her the way a man looks at a thing he is no longer afraid he is going to lose. "You're back." "I think so." "How do you feel?" "I don't know, try." She tried. She closed her eyes. She felt the bed under her. She felt the cloth at her shoulders, and under all of that, she felt something new, a second pulse, not in her chest but not from it. A small, steady thread that ran from a point at the base of her throat to a point somewhere outside her own body. She turned her head, just a fraction, and the thread pulled toward Roderick, the way a needle pulls toward a magnet. She opened her eyes. "You feel that? I feel it. It's a string. It's a bond. It's a string. I am going to call it a string." He almost smiled. "Call it whatever you want." She sat up too fast. The room tilted. He was already there, his hand at her elbow. "Steady. There's something else." "What?" "I saw her." He went still. "Who?" "My mother, I think. I saw her. I saw a ring. I saw her give the ring to a child. The child was me. I think the child was me." "Where was she?" "A field. Then a forest. Then a clearing." "What did the ring look like?" "A Griesenstone. Small, a simple band." He stood. He walked to the door. He opened it. He spoke to someone in the corridor in a voice too low for her to hear. He came back. He sat down again. "Alaric will be here in a moment." "Why?" "Because that ring is in our records." "What?" "The elders kept records of the southern bloodlines. After the raids 10 years ago, they sketched the heraldry of the houses Varek struck. The ring you described is in the index." "It can't be." "It is." Alaric came in within 5 minutes. He had a book under one arm, old leather, brass corner pieces. He set it on the table and did not open it. "Your Majesty." "Elowen, tell her." Alaric looked at her. He had the kind of face that did not waste an expression. He spoke carefully. 10 years ago, a small southern house was raided. The house was old, older than ours. It was not a great house. It did not sit on a council. But it was a house of pure blood, and it had been quiet for centuries, and its quiet was the reason it survived as long as it did. The name of that house was Edmund. The name landed. She had heard the name once. Last night, in Matilda's hall. Matilda had said a good woman's daughter. Matilda had not said the name. Matilda had not said any name. But the name was Edmund. The name was Edmund, and the name was already inside her chest the way a key is already inside the lock it was cut for. Lord Edmund and Lady Rosalind, his wife, the matriarch of the line. The mark of their house was a small ring, a green stone, a simple band. Each member of the house wore one from the time they could walk. "My mother? Your mother? How? You were a child. You were nearly 8 years old. You were not at the house the night of the raid. The records said all the children were accounted for. The records were wrong. There was one child, you. You were in the orchard with a member of the household when the men came. You were the one the household woman ran with. She made it as far as a clearing in the next valley. She did not make it further. She died. She died." Elowen could not feel her hands. "Why did I not know?" "Because the woman who took you on the other side of the trees made sure you did not know." She looked at Roderick. Roderick was watching her. Roderick had already worked out, in the time it took Alaric to walk to the chair, the shape of what was coming. "Matilda. Matilda. How does Matilda know my mother?" Alaric did not answer. Roderick did, because Matilda is your mother's sister. The thread inside her pulled hard once. A short, bright pull, like a string yanked from the other end. She put a hand on her sternum to stop it. The pull eased. "That is not. It is. That is not possible. It is. She hated me. She did not hate you. She made me kneel on stone for 7 hours when I dropped a candlestick. To keep you from being noticed, she slapped me in front of the kitchen. To keep you from being noticed, she sent me away. 3 nights ago, she told me being born was my sin, to get you past her own walls and into someone else's. Because she had received a letter. the one we now believe Varric sent her, telling her he had found her hiding place, telling her he was coming. The thread pulled again. She closed her eyes. She saw Mathilde in the candlelight. The look on Mathilde's face when she had said the word child. The way Mathilde had not slapped her when she had said Mathilde's name in the maid's room. The way Mathilde had not punished her at the dinner table. The way Mathilde had said, in the hall, with Roderick standing over her, "Your reach slows at his border, that is all I have to offer." Every hard moment of 10 years rearranged itself in her chest. Every cold word, every cold look. They were the only language a frightened woman knew to keep her niece alive. She did not cry. She would later, not now. She let me hate her, yes. For 10 years, yes. She let me hate her so I would never look at her long enough to see what I was, yes. She opened her eyes. She looked at Roderick. "I need to sit up. You are sitting up. I need to stand." "Not yet, Roderick." 5 more minutes. He helped her stand. She made it 3 steps. She made it to the window. She looked out at the courtyard. The courtyard was filling. Men in dark green were moving with the particular fast quiet of men who had been ordered to be quiet quickly. "Roderick, I know. There are men in your courtyard. I know. Why are there men in your courtyard?" He did not answer for a beat. Alaric spoke instead. Alaric, who could not afford a tone that hid anything, dropped it cleanly. "Lord Varric crossed our southern border before dawn. A column. Not large enough. He is here. He is here. That fast. He has been moving for a week. He started before we did. He knew the moment the king broke the contract that he had run out of years. How? He has people in our court. Of course he does. He has had them for 10 years. We will find them later. We do not have time now." She put her hand on the cold stone of the windowsill. "He wants to finish it. Yes, he wants me. He wants the last of the line gone before anyone else can use it, including us. Mathilde? What about her? Where is she?" A small pause. "She left her castle yesterday. After we did. She rode north. Alone. 2 of our scouts saw her on the road this morning. She is coming here. Why? Because she has finished hiding." The thread inside her pulled a 3rd time. Different now. Not toward Roderick. Not toward the room. Outward, south. As if something far away had brushed against the far end of it. She knew. She did not know how she knew. But she knew. Mathilde is in trouble. "How do you?" "I don't know how I know." "I know." Alaric looked at Roderick. Roderick looked at the door. "How far?" "Hours. Get Bertram. Get a detail. Find her. And the city." "The city holds the wall. Varric does not get inside. I will be in the courtyard when you ride." Alaric was already gone. Roderick turned to her. "Stay, Roderick. Stay. Inside. In this room. I am putting 4 guards at the door. You are not putting me in a room. I am putting you in a room. I am not staying in a room. Elowen. What good is the bond if you cannot feel me on the wall?" He looked at her. He almost laughed. He almost broke. "He did neither. If I say no, I will go anyway. That is not. I will." He looked at her for a long moment. He stepped close. He put his foreheads against hers. He breathed. The thread pulled steadily. Now, both ways. A line. A line that could carry weight. "If you die today, I will burn the world." "Don't burn the world." "I will. Then don't let me die." The wall held until the 3rd hour. She did not see the 1st hour. She was getting dressed. A woman she did not know fitted her into a leather jerkin that was again, somehow exactly her size. She did not have time to be unsettled. She did not have time to do anything, except follow the woman down a corridor she had not walked yet, into a room with weapons on the walls, where she was handed a short sword she did not know how to use and a dagger she could use a little, because Greta had once taught her how to peel apples with one. She did not see the 2nd hour. She was on the inner wall with Roderick. Watching arrows, watching men. Watching a column on the road that did not look as large as Alaric had said, until it folded out and revealed itself to be 3 times larger than it had looked. Varric's banner came up, a 3-eyed bird, black on red. She felt the wolf in Roderick rise toward it like a hand reaching for a throat. She did not see the 3rd hour. By the 3rd hour, Varric's outriders had reached the inner gate. The inner gate held, but the small western postern did not. 30 men in black got into the lower courtyard. Roderick met them at the bottom of the stair. She was on the stair behind him when one of them came up over the railing. She did not think. She turned. The dagger was in her hand. The dagger went where Greta had taught her to put it on an apple. The man went down. She stared at her own hand. She did not have time to be horrified. Roderick was a wolf again. She did not have to see the change. She felt it through the bond. A tearing forward, a heat, A body that was no longer his own answer to the question of what he was. The lower courtyard turned into a thing she would not describe to herself later. It was loud. It was wet. The wolf was everywhere. She kept her back to the stone. The dagger was red. She had stopped counting. Time had collapsed into a series of breaths, and a single thread inside her chest that told her, with every pull, where in the courtyard he was. Then the thread could cut. Not snapped, sharply, just for a second. She turned across the courtyard, by the well, Roderick on his side, human again, his shoulder open from collarbone to elbow. Blood, too much of it, standing over him with a black blade in one hand. A man with iron hair and a face she had never seen before but recognized in her bones. Varric had cut him. Varric was raising the black blade again. She did not remember running. She did not remember crossing the courtyard. She did not remember dropping the dagger because the dagger was useless against a man like Varric, and her body had finally, for the first time in her life, told her so. She felt a heat in her chest, different from the bond, different from the bite. A heat that started behind her sternum and ran outward in every direction, the way the heat from the bite had run. Only this time, the heat had nowhere to go. It went into her bones. Her bones agreed with it. She did not change so much as agree with herself. Her body folded. The leather of the jerkin came apart. The space where she had been standing held, for one full breath, a shape that was not a woman, white, pale silver at the throat, eyes that were yellow at the rim and bright at the center. Varric turned. Varric's blade hesitated. She did not. The first leap took her across the well. The second took her across the dead man between them. The third put her teeth in the wrists that held the black blade. The black blade hit the stone with a sound she would remember when she was old. Varric tried to step back. Varric did not get to. The wolf that she was now had been 10 years late to a meeting, and the wolf knew it. The wolf made up the time. There was no speech in her, there was no thought. There was only a steady, cold animal accounting. Of a house, of a mother, of a father whose laugh she had only just remembered, of the 10 years between the night in the orchard and the morning on the wall. When she stepped back, Varric did not get up. The courtyard went quiet around her. His men saw it. Varric's column saw it from the outer wall. Bertram's detail saw it from the outer road as they rode in. A kicking from the south out, dead in a northern courtyard, with the throat of a white wolf at the place where his throat used to be. The line of Varric's men in the lower courtyard broke. It was not a rout. It was not a battle ending. It was a snap. The kind of snap that runs through a fighting force when the head is removed in front of them. They turned. They ran. The men of Nightvale did not chase them all. Roderick, lifting himself against the well, did not let them go. Let them carry the message. She turned. The wolf turned. She crossed the courtyard. She lowered her head over him. He was bleeding hard, but he was conscious. He put his good hand against the side of her muzzle. His eyes were wet. "Hello, you." The wolf pressed her forehead to his. The thread between them was hot now, bright, whole. He smiled. He passed out. She did not change back for an hour. Alaric did not ask her to. Alaric understood. The elders carried Roderick to a clean room and bound his shoulder and worked on him with the small, patient hands of men who had bound a great many shoulders. The wolf paced outside the door. The wolf did not let anyone she did not know into the room. The wolf did not let anyone in until Bertram came up the steps, and behind Bertram, climbing slowly, came Mathilde. Mathilde was hurt, not badly, a cut above her eyebrow, a bruise on her jaw. She had ridden hard and been pulled from a road skirmish 2 hours south. And Bertram's detail had reached her in time, barely. Mathilde stopped at the top of the stair. She looked at the wolf. The wolf looked at her. Some recognitions do not need shape. The wolf turned its head. The wolf stepped aside. Mathilde knelt. A woman who had not knelt in 30 years, knelt on the stone of a courtyard belonging to another kingdom. Hands flat on her own knees. Head bowed. "I let you hate me. I let you hate me because if you had loved me, you would have looked at me. And if you had looked at me, he would have found you in 3 months instead of 10 years. I needed the 10 years. I am sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry." The wolf walked to her. The wolf, who had crossed an open courtyard a half-hour earlier, lowered her head to the head of the kneeling woman. The wolf pressed her forehead to Mathilde's forehead. Mathilde wept. It was the only time, in the rest of her life, that anyone would ever see her do so. When she finally stood, her face was streaked, and she did not bother to wipe it. The wolf walked her into the room where Roderick was being bandaged. Roderick was awake again. Roderick looked at Mathilde and did not speak. Mathilde inclined her head. "Your Majesty, my lady, I owe you an account, you owe me nothing." "She owes you everything." Mathilde looked at the wolf. No. The wolf changed back. It was not graceful. There was a long second of skin and breath and the wrong angle of bone settling. Then she was on her knees, and Mathilde was already pulling her cloak off and putting it over her shoulders, and Elowen, dressed in a wolf's silence and a woman's exhaustion and an ant's cloak, looked at the only family she had left in the world. "We owe each other. That is fairer." That night they buried the dead and washed the courtyard and lit the high braziers along the inner wall. Bertram sent riders south to confirm Varric's column had truly broken. Alaric sat with Roderick until the bleeding stopped and then sat with him longer. Mathilde was given a room. The room was not far from Elowen's. In the small hours, Elowen could not sleep. She got up. She walked to the window. The city below was quiet. There were stars. There were not many. There was a moon that had moved most of the way across the sky. Far, very far. On a low hill outside the city, a single figure stood and watched the castle. It did not move. It had no banner. It had no horse. It had no cloak that anyone in the castle would recognize. It had eyes that did not catch the moonlight the way human eyes catch the moonlight. It watched Night Vale for a long time. Then it turned. It walked back into the trees the way a thing walks when it has all the time in the world. Elowen at her window felt the thread inside her pull once. A small pull. Not toward Roderick. Outward. South. The way it had pulled toward Mathilde when Mathilde had been in trouble. Only this time the thing on the other end was not in trouble. The thing on the other end was patient. She did not know yet. She would not know for some time. But the wolf in her, the new young thing in her that had only just woken up that morning, knew. She closed the window. She went back to... She slept. The bells rang at dawn. Cosima and Greta arrived 11 days later in a small carriage Bertram had sent for them. Cosima cried when she saw Elowen. Greta did not. Greta inspected the courtyard, looked Elowen up and down, looked at the white scar at the curve of Elowen's neck, looked at the bond she could not see but seemed to register anyway, and gave her opinion. "You look ridiculous in good clothes. I am so proud of you I might be sick." Elowen hugged them both. They were given rooms near hers. They were given the title of ladies in waiting, which Cosima took seriously, and Greta took as a personal challenge to the institution. They were given new dresses. Cosima cried again about the dresses. Greta tried hers on, declared the sleeves a tragedy, and made seamstress redo them. Mathilde stayed 2 months. She did not go home. The southern reach was managed in her absence by a steward she trusted, and she said, quietly, to Elowen on the 3rd week, "I would like to be in this castle when the wedding happens, if that is permitted." Elowen said it was. Mathilde did not thank her. Mathilde did not need to. The wedding happened in the inner garden in early spring. There were no 4 fires. There were no drums. There was a small ring of stone, an old ring with a green stone at the center of it that Mathilde slipped on to Elowen's finger before the elders spoke. The ring had been Lady Rosalind's. Mathilde had carried it for 10 years, under her clothes on a thin chain, and had never once taken it off. Roderick kissed her in front of the garden. The pack cheered. Greta cried this time, which she denied for the rest of her life. Cosima did not deny anything. There would be more. There would be a watcher in the trees, who would not stay in the trees forever. There would be a council debate, several months later, about whether the old wars were over or whether they had only paused for a season. There would be nights when the thread inside her pulled south, and Roderick would come to stand behind her at the window, and they would not speak. But that is another story. This one stops here. With a girl who scrubbed stones for 10 years standing in a garden in a borrowed kingdom that had decided at last to be hers. And there are 3 things this story leaves with you. The first, the value of a person does not live in their clothes. It does not live in the name they carry, or in the hall they were born in, or in the room they sleep in at night. A girl on her knees with a bucket can hold the oldest blood in 3 kingdoms and not know it. A king on a throne can fail to see her for years and not know that either. We do not get to decide what a soul is worth by looking at it. We only get to decide what we do with the looking. The second, sometimes the harshest face in a room is the most frightened. Sometimes the woman who hits you is the woman trying to keep you out of someone else's sights. Sometimes the cold word at the dinner table is the only language a frightened person knows for love. This is not an excuse for cruelty. It is not a forgiveness anyone owes. It is a reminder. The people who fail us are often failing themselves harder. If we can find the courage to ask why, we may find on the other side of the asking a story we did not know we were inside. And the third. Every quiet person we pass is carrying a story. The waitress at the corner booth, the man on the bench at the bus stop, the woman who folds the towels at the laundromat down the street, the cousin we have not called in 2 years. Every one of them is the lead character of a chapter we have never read. We will not get to read most of them. That is all right. The thing we can do is treat them as if we might. How many Elowens have walked past us in our lives? Quiet, invisible. Stories that could move mountains, if only we had asked. Have you ever been underestimated or underestimated someone yourself, only to discover the truth too late? Share your story in the comment below. Your words might be the lesson someone needs to hear today. Some doors do not open the first time you stand at them. Some doors open the day you finally stop pretending you do not belong on the other side. That is the door this story walked through. That is the door, in the end, that walks through all of us.